Welcome, paranormal enthusiasts, to this week's episode of We're Creepin' It Reel, here on the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network, where everyone comes for their paranormal fix. Real people, real stories, in real time. So glad you could join us for some ghostly gab. I'm your host, Eleanor Wagner.
Hey, everybody. Give a hello shout out to our coast to coast techie, Chris Mabry. He'll be working hard tonight to help us run smoothly. I'm so excited to introduce today's guest. I've been fortunate enough to work with him personally in the past, and he has been kind enough to grace us with his presence tonight. Join me in welcoming paranormal investigator Mark Johnson to the Creepin' It Reel Vault. Hey, Mark, welcome.
Hi, Eleanor. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for coming today.
My pleasure.
Pleasure.
Can you tell me how it is that you got involved in the paranormal and investigating?
Well, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I've always been fascinated with paranormal ever since I was a kid, but it wasn't until I moved out from Los Angeles here to New Jersey, and I lived in a house up here in Sussex County in Highland Lakes, that I started to encounter real activity. And I started recording some of this activity and then doing my research online, finding that there were groups out there. I had a group come in and investigate my house, and I was so fascinated with it that I joined them. And I've been investigating now for almost 21 years.
Was that your first paranormal encounter ever in your Highland Lakes home?
No, I've had very different encounters throughout my life. A lot of times I didn't realize what was happening. It was in hindsight that I realized that I was experiencing something. I would lie in my room at night and I'd hear my name being called. I'd go and find my mother and say, "Were you calling me?" She goes, "I wasn't calling you." Other times I had dreams of being out of my body. I watched, when I was in high school, my brother and I and a friend of ours watched this documentary. You can find it out there somewhere. It's called The Amazing World of Psychic Phenomenon, made back in the late 70s, early 80s, and showed on local television. And it showed an investigator going to cemeteries with, I'm not kidding, a reel-to-reel tape recorder, because digital recorders didn't exist back then, tape recording graves. They didn't call it EVP back then. The term had not been coined, but he would get voices on every so often on a grave. And of course, as dumb 17-year-olds were going, "Man, we got to go do this." So there was a local pioneer cemetery in my town, north of Los Angeles. So we went in an afternoon, broad daylight, took a cassette tape recorder, went around, started taping some graves. And then we finally found this one in the back of the cemetery that had no headstone, so we don't know who was buried there, had a cement lid on it, like a sarcophagus, rather than being buried in the ground. So we put the tape recorder there, we let it play, we stood a few feet away. We're in the middle of a big location, nobody around at all, just the three of us. Went back, played the tape back, and we're listening to it. And all of a sudden you hear this, what sounds like a young woman or a girl's voice whispering, and she goes, "I'm dead, help me."
Oh no.
Now, my one friend who was with us wanted to just split right then and there. He was scared to death. Me, I'm sitting there going, "Oh no, we got to get more." So I hit record again. We recorded some more, played it back. This time, almost immediately, you hear my footsteps walking away from the recorder, and then the same woman's voice, this time crystal clear, loud as day, says, "It isn't finished." And that's all we got there. The quality of it, and again, this is before computers. This is before
Sure.
being able to really analyze audio. I wish I still had that recording because the quality of it was so interesting. It had a slight echo to it, like it was in an enclosed space.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That's interesting.
yeah, so I had that and a few other things happened, but it wasn't really until I moved to New Jersey that I really started, and I moved into this one house that I really started to have activity happening like constantly. From hearing my name being called to feeling an intense energy. I had a video camera. I started filming and I started catching all sorts of anomalies that were not dust. My favorite is one I call a flying sock. As I'm sitting in a chair in the living room,
Oh, right.
you saw
We're
that.
going to talk about that. We're going to talk about it a little later. I have that video actually to share with the
Okay.
audience. Yeah, it's crazy how active Highland Lakes really is because as an author and getting these stories from people around the community, I've gotten quite a lot from Highland Lakes that will be in the next book. So it's suffice it to say, it is definitely active. And I think a lot of it is Native American, to be
And a lot of it
honest.
is also the location, the ground. There's a lot of iron in the ground. The water up there is undrinkable because it's so iron filled. So there's a lot of
Right.
metal and underground streams. And there's something about that one location up in Highland Lakes. Now, my wife, who was yet to be my wife, was living next door. That's how we met. And
Oh, okay.
she was having experiences at her house too. And then we got married and I moved
Ah,
in with her. We had a few experiences there as well. So yeah,
interesting.
Highland Lakes was definitely a hot spot.
A hotspot. Well, you did an investigation at the Rolling Hills Asylum, and it came out with some interesting evidence. Picture credit to your own Northern New Jersey Parallel website because he's going to put up a picture for us of that building. But Rolling Hills opened its doors in 1827 when the New York state legislation demanded that all counties take responsibility for all those individuals unable to care for themselves. Originally, it was a tavern which serviced travelers along Route 20. The facility took in paupers, unwed mothers, the insane, and orphans. Happy mix, wouldn't you say? But by the early 50s, it served the public as a nursing home and closed its doors in 72. What happened with you during that investigation?
Well, actually, we did two investigations. We went back 2 years in a row. And I'm going to say that Rolling Hills is one of the hottest paranormal hotspots that I've ever investigated. I mean, we were hearing things even setting up, doing preliminaries. We'd hear screams down the hallway. I'd hear children's voices. People saw shadows. We were having unexplained bangs. We'd hear music. We'd see strange lights. All sorts of different things happened. And what we captured on both audio and video was very stunning. In one spot, we
Is
caught
the
this.
building still standing?
Oh yes, they're still holding ghost
Oh, it
tours.
is.
Yes, the woman who owns it, she's
Okay.
owned it now for about 15 years. And she regularly holds events there. It's been on several different television shows. Everyone from Ghost Hunters to Ghost Adventures has been there. And most
Okay.
people talk about seeing the apparition of Roy, who was a gentleman who had giganticism. Oh my God, I can't talk tonight. Where he was well over 7 feet tall, even as a young boy.
Oh, wow.
And he lived there, and he lived there his entire life. His family dumped him there because he was odd, and that's
Oh,
what happened back then. And people have taken pictures of a real tall figure. They've seen a tall shadow figure moving throughout the building, and there's a lot of experiences down in the body chute, down in the morgue. But even in the regular hallways, I mean, just walking down the hallways, I was the first time I was there, I was literally just walking down to go put a camera up, and I heard a scream down one of the hallways. And I'm sitting there going, okay. I wanted to make sure it wasn't a bird or natural wildlife that was around there. Yeah, I didn't want to make sure, we could rule out everything, but there was nothing. It's in the middle of farmland in the middle of nowhere. In fact, I mean, literally,
Sure.
you stand in front of it. You look down four corners of the intersection right in front of it, and you're looking at nothing but farmland as far as the eye can see.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Well, I know that we have some videos from that investigation to share with the audience. You had one that was tunnel footsteps, and Chris is going to upload that for us. You can kind of explain to us what was going on there when that happened.
Okay, I'll have to see that one when it comes up. I know that we heard
Sure.
footsteps many times while we were in the body shoot and the and other locations throughout. So if you want to go ahead and play the video. I'll be honest with you, I didn't hear anything on my end. Did you?
I did very, very briefly.
Okay.
Now, where were these tunnels? Were they under the actual building in the basement, or
Yes,
were they outside of?
this tunnel was originally constructed to move materials in and out of the building. But then when it was a tuberculosis hospital and then an old folks home, when people died, they didn't want to just wheel people out in front of everybody. So they would take them down this chute, which went under the building and would come out away from the location. So that's why they called it the body chute. And
Oh, okay.
you could you walk down there, and a lot of people have had, they've seen apparitions, they've heard voices, we've gotten footsteps.
Well, we have one that's an orb that comes up in the frame during the actual video footage. You can see the orb,
Okay.
and when I watched that, it was pretty cool because I know people have just they argue over whether the fact that it's an orb or is it dust, but this to me really looked definitively like an orb.
Okay. Yes, let's play that. Once Chris is able to get that up.
Yeah.
I mean, we had several different types of anomalies, very misty types of anomalies that would show up. And people again saw
He's coming up.
shadows. They would see light.
Light, you were saying too.
Yeah.
Well,
light.
I know we have a video about that too. You had like a mysterious light that showed up. We can play that after we see the orb.
Sure.
But I remember. Well, am I correct in saying that you did this investigation in the darkness and only had whatever minimal light assistance of your own that you used?
Yeah, we used all types of night vision infrared cameras. We had thermal imaging cameras set up as well, walking through.
Mm-hmm.
I had a wireless remote camera. There's a couple times you might see me. This is back before they really had GoPro cameras. So I had a wireless, actually a wired camera. Okay, here we go.
Here's the footage with the orb. It actually showed up in the very first. There it goes. There it is. See it? Yeah, that's cool.
Yep.
Yeah. And it moves to the very end even too. It just, it definitely is visual.
Yeah.
And that was cool.
It and we had to be careful with Rolling Hills because there was a lot of dust, and we had to really go through our footage to make sure that anything we presented wasn't just dust. It was we could not explain it. For most people who don't understand, when there's a dust orb in front of a camera, it's usually about this far from the camera lens, and the light from the
Right.
camera is hitting it, and because it's out of the focal plane, it blows it up and makes it look bigger rather than a speck, and looks like what we call an orb. But when we get an orb that seems to have distance to it, maybe goes behind an object or a person, or makes some maneuvers that it's not just a particle of dust floating in the breeze, but it's making odd, fast changes, then we'll consider it as possible evidence.
Gotcha. Well, with the light footage that he's going to play next, we were just talking about that. That was an unexplained light source compared to what it was that you were using on the premises at the time.
Yes.
Yes. And when I watched, I could clearly see there was something down that tunnel that was light oriented, and couldn't explain it myself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see what this.
Yeah, that's it. Now, the audience should remember that they only had equipment on that was going to help them see in the darkness. So any kind of light source wasn't something that they had brought onto the premises, and there was no electricity. It was dead.
There's no
So if anything,
electricity, no running water. Only in the front office area do they have electricity, but nowhere else is there electricity in the building. So, everything we had ran on batteries, or we would run long cables from where there was
right.
power to go down to the location. But we got, the video evidence is fascinating. It's the audio evidence that I personally find to be intriguing, because you just, when you can rule out anybody else who's around, and you get a voice, a disembodied voice, especially one that intelligently asks a question, answers a question, then these recorders don't pick up radio signals. They don't pick up walkie-talkies or cell phone signals. And in most cases, these audio recordings were not, at the time that they were recorded, we didn't hear them. So I have a couple here that I could play for you from my.
I would love for you to. I know that you have quite a lot of it, and that's crazy. And I'm like you. I totally agree that the audio evidence is indisputable. So please go ahead and share with us and tell us about it.
Well, our first investigation, which happened back in 2009, one of our investigators was down in the morgue, and this investigator was asking if any spirits died there, and they got a response. I want you to listen to this and tell me what you think.
Did you die here?
Did you hear that?
I have to say, no, I didn't.
Did you hear
heard something, but I heard something, but I did not understand what I was hearing.
Okay, let me play it one more time.
Okay.
Did you die here?
Oh, what is he saying?
The voice we heard is a woman's voice saying, "Yeah, I did."
Oh, okay. I did not hear it, but I believe you.
Okay.
I heard something, but I couldn't make heads or tails of it. But okay. Wow. All right.
Another one was one that I recorded and this is what was funny. The first time we were there, not a lot happened in the beginning, and I was actually getting a little bored because I didn't think that much was going on, even though we were capturing a lot of evidence and other people in the team were having experiences. So at one point, I'm walking around and I have my recorder, and I start to comment, being a little snarky, saying that so far I wasn't very impressed with Rolling Hills. Well,
Okay.
as I'm talking, another voice loudly talks over me. I was alone at the time. So listen to this.
Okay.
So far, I don't know about you guys. So far, I'm not impressed with Rolling Hills.
Now, did you hear that kind of moan just as I started to talk?
Yeah, I did.
Let me play it one more time.
Okay.
So far, I don't know about you guys. So far, I'm not impressed with Rolling Hills.
Yeah.
So I wasn't impressed, and somebody was, I think, kind of scolding me there.
Interesting.
We had another strange incident where we all had walkie talkies, so all the teams could stay together and communicate together. We're all on different floors because there's 2 levels in the main hospital building, but in the administrative side there are three levels, and then plus there's the basement, there's the body chute. Excuse me. So there's this is a big location, and we had walkie talkies so that we could communicate. Well, like I said, there is nobody nearby. There's no houses nearby. There's nothing. And these are short range walkie talkies. We shouldn't receive anything. And all of a sudden, while we were there, something came over our walkie talkies. It sounds like a person laughing. And then you hear us react to it. So listen to this.
Okay.
Situations like this.
But the thing was, you were kicking, and I didn't know you were kicking. I thought it was like,
That sounded like someone laughing.
Yeah. I definitely heard that.
Yep.
Definitely heard that.
Let me play it one more time.
Okay.
Situations like this.
but the thing was, you were kicking, and I didn't know you were kicking. I thought it was like,
Oh yeah. That I heard that
Yeah.
loud and clear.
Now we checked with the rest of the team, and nobody was laughing. Nobody did that.
That's funny.
Here's another one. One of our investigators, Chris Devaney, was talking about the old building, and a man's voice calls out and says, what we think says, "Leave me alone."
I think it's just old building syndrome.
Yeah.
It's kind of like almost like a Marlon Brando, kind of like, "Leave me alone."
Yeah. And it makes me so sad to hear that, because I think these spirits have probably been trying for so long to try and make a connection with somebody that can actually hear them and make sense of what it is that they're trying to say. And because they run across these brick walls all the time, they get to the point where they just say, "Go away, leave me alone, get
Mhm.
out." And it's so sad. It really is.
And what gets me is the screams. We heard screams, but both times we were there. You hear them faintly down the hallway, or you hear children's voices down the hallway. And now again, because this location was everything at one point, an old folks home, inebriation hospital, for alcoholics. It was a poor farm. It was a tuberculosis hospital. So there is so much going on there. And more than once we would hear screams coming down a hallway. And, it's sad. You wonder if it's either an imprint.
Like a residual kind of energy
Yeah,
sort of thing.
could be residual, could be, I don't know. Here's one where I'm sitting in the morgue by myself, and I asked the spirits if they're aware they're dead. And then this might be a little faint. I hope you can hear it. You can hear a brief scream or shout down the hallway.
Are you aware that you died?
Yeah, I don't think you heard that. I was too faint.
No, I did. No, I did. I heard it.
You did hear it. Okay, good.
It was not too long after you spoke.
Yes.
There was a brief period of pause, and then all of a sudden I did hear it. But I did hear it. Yeah.
Again, the morgue was had a lot of activity when we were there. At one point, I start an EVP session. It's about 1:26 in the morning, and as I start laying down whenever I do an EVP session, I lay down the date and time as a marker. And as I'm doing this, and there was a loud, harsh, disembodied voice that talked, and I didn't hear it at the time.
Mm.
26 in the morgue.
Ooh.
Yeah,
he didn't
kinda like
sound
a
too whatever it was didn't sound. Yeah, it was like a growl almost.
yeah, like
Yeah.
a grunt. Let me get a little closer to it here.
In the morgue.
Oh yeah, and that sounded like there was like a big bang after that too.
Yeah, I have to discount that because I was fiddling with the recorder a lot, so I don't know if that was me or not. Yeah,
Okay.
I have to be honest when I'm not 100% sure of something that I hear.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
But
No, but definitely I heard that growl, grumpy, whatever it was.
yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
so Rolling Hills in general is just a incredible location. They're kind of expensive. There's a few of these places. I like going to these public places, but sometimes the owners they're desperate to keep them open because it's a big location. So back then, this was 12 years ago, they were charging $1,000 for an all-night investigation. Now, if you get 10 investigators together, $100 a piece, it's not so bad.
sure.
Um, they also hold public events, but the public events, there's so much contamination there. I know TAPS, Ghost Hunters, held a few events there, and I'm not a big fan of those myself because you can't get any real solid evidence because it's too much contamination, too many people around.
Mhm. Interesting. Well, you did say you have stuff going on in your own home. You don't have to go far for that. Did you feel something on the property beforehand, or is it something that you brought home with you from one of your investigations?
Well, I've had experiences in a couple of different properties I lived in. When I first moved to New Jersey, I was living in a 1930s converted cabin up in scenic in Highland Lakes, which is was a lake community. It was mostly summer homes. People from New York City would come up and spend time in the country, and they converted it into a home, and that's where I caught my flying sock video. I started hearing my name being called. I had several different things happening. One time, and as I mentioned, my wife, who I eventually met and married, and she lived in the house next door. And we had known each other and was starting to date at this point, but we still lived separately. Well, I walked out the back door. I'd just gotten home from work and I was wearing, work shoes, loafers, and the wood deck was slick. It had a little bit of like mold or slime on it. And I started walking down the stairs. My feet went out from under me and I fell all the way down the stairs and broke my tailbone and bashed up
Oh,
my arm.
okay.
And I was hurt. And
Mm.
I laid there stunned for a few minutes. And then I started calling out to her because she was right next door, hoping she would hear me. And I called several times. She didn't hear me. So I got up and I was finally able to stand and kind of check myself out and see how I felt. And I was mostly okay, although I broke my tailbone and that hurt. So I stumbled over to her house, and when I walked in and she saw what happened, and then she explained that she was sitting in the living room, and at the same time when I was calling her hurt, she had one of these like big, flower arrangement kind of wreath thing that you could hang on the wall. It was hanging on the wall, and then suddenly it just slid slowly down the wall. Not like it
Oh,
came off the hook and fell off and fell on. It slid straight down the wall in front of her. And then a few minutes later, that's when I showed up. It's like something was trying to get her attention.
Get her attention.
There was one time after I had moved in, we were lying there talking, and we were talking about her grandmother who had passed. And it's the middle of winter. All the windows are shut. We have baseboard heat, so there's no air flowing heat. And we had a ceiling fan in the room, which obviously wasn't on because it's wintertime. And as we're talking, we look up, and all of a sudden, the blades on the fan are turning. And not only are they turning, they're turning backwards.
Oh.
And not fast, just a slow turn. And we both look at it and we stare at them. We're going, okay. I guess her grandmother heard us or somebody heard us. There was another house we lived in Glenwood, which is on the other side of Vernon, just a few miles from Highland Lakes. And Glenwood is another one of those hot spots. There's something, because I did an investigation of a house just 2 blocks away of where I bought my house a couple of years before. And that was kind of a negative investigation, what that woman was dealing with. And in my house, we had activity. And one of the things that stands out the most is my wife is in the bathroom, which has the door that opens to the hallway, and right across from the hallway was her office. And she's getting ready. We were going to go out later, and she's in the bathroom doing her hair. And all of a sudden, she sees somebody, she thought it was me, walk out of her office carrying something like a box or something and walk across and go into the bedroom. Well, she thought it was me. And she didn't think anything of it. And then a minute later, she asked me, "Oh, so what did you want to do tonight?" I didn't answer her. And she got annoyed because I didn't answer her. And she asked again. And when I didn't answer, she walks into the bedroom and there's nobody up there. She starts calling out in a very frightened voice. Well, I'm downstairs. This was a bi-level house. I was downstairs watching TV. But she clearly saw a man walk out of her office carrying something and go into the next room. Another time that would
be very scary.
Another time we had some friends over and their young son, who was about 6 or 7, he was seeing things in the house we couldn't see. He kept pointing downstairs in the downstairs part of the house. He kept pointing in the corner and he kept saying, "Snow. There's snow." And we're going, "Snow?" And then we realized he was trying to interpret what he was seeing, which was probably some kind of a white mist.
Okay. Or foggy. Yeah. Well, I know we have some sort of footage that you gave us. I didn't get a chance to look at it, but Chris is going to put it up and you can tell us what's going on. But it's from your Highland Lakes house because you've got it entitled My Highland Lakes House.
Okay. Let's see which one this is.
I'm stunned by the number of people I've been hearing about Highland Lakes and the activity there. It's crazy.
Like I said, I'm not surprised. The community is about 90 years old. It's a man-made lake, beautiful lake. And again, mostly summer properties, although most people live there now full time. But this was all Lenni Lenape Indian land.
Right.
So not to say, I'm not one who subscribes to there being, Indian burial grounds, causing paranormal activity. I don't really buy that myself much. But I do believe that there are a lot of areas up here that either have portals, connecting ley lines, something that makes them have more activity than other locations.
Than other places. It could be, like you said, the iron or the mid rolls or what have you in the land, the water around. Any number of those things could be indicative of what is causing the activity.
Yeah,
Okay,
Chris,
the
I think
Highland Lakes house. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
the internet, we have a slight delay. Yeah, that's not the page.
Okay. Because that's
I'm
what
gonna,
I
I'm gonna,
have. Oh,
I'm tagging you in it. It says this is in the message that I sent you on Messenger. It says
okay.
his Highland Lakes house. Flying anomaly. That's what you called it.
Yes. This is my flying sock.
Oh, this is the flying sock one.
Yes.
Look in Messenger, Chris, and it says his
Okay.
Highland Lakes.
Oh, that. Okay.
As he's looking for it, I'll tell you that I was using back then, I didn't even have ghost equipment. I had a regular white light super VHS camera. And there was a lot of times I was alone in the house and I would feel things. So I would start to record and I would start catching orbs. And I caught several anomalies. I caught an orb coming out of the far wall in the living room and then traveling in a lazy like pattern towards me. And the whole time it's strobing. It get brighter than dimmer, then brighter than dimmer until it would move and go completely out of frame.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the video that Chris is looking for right now, I was sitting in a chair and I was filming. Again, the lights are out, but I had the light on my camera and it's a white light, not infrared. And as I'm sitting there, an orb or light anomaly goes shooting horizontally across the frame really fast, and it leaves a streak going behind it. Now, I saw it in the camera, and you kind of see the camera react a little bit. I kind of pull in and out. And then when I pan over, something flies out from under the rocking chair from across the room, flies right at me, and goes right past me into the kitchen. And I've never seen anything like this before in my life because it looks like I call it a flying sock as kind of a joke, but it looks like almost like a tadpole. It had a bulbous head going into a tail. If I had to guess, it was about this big, and it just appeared out of nowhere from under the rocking chair and flew right past me. I not only saw it in the camera, I saw it in my peripheral vision as it flew past me into the kitchen.
Mm. Have you ever put any audio recorders out to see if you could pick up any voices or any?
Back
Thing
then,
like
I didn't have them because I
Oh.
wasn't into investigation yet.
Mhm.
So I never got any EVPs in that house. However, I did experience for the only time in my life in that house about 4 or 5 times sleep paralysis.
Oh, okay.
And in those cases, I would usually wake up and I felt like an energy pressing me down into the bed.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like an electrical tingling. I couldn't move. I could barely open my eyes to see, but I was awake and I was feeling this and I couldn't move. And I couldn't speak. But I felt like there was a presence there. So I tried thinking to it, to communicate with it, to see if it could read my thoughts. And I would ask, what do you want? Or who are you?
Right.
And then suddenly the pressure would get more intense, pressing down on me. And then after a minute, it would release. It did it a couple of times. And finally I said, go away, leave me alone.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly the pressure lifted and it was gone. And then I could move again. Now, a normal person would probably be jumping up and down out of bed, freaking out, all scared. What did I do? I rolled over and went back to sleep.
Sleep paralysis is a very scary thing, though. I mean, I've had it happen to me numerous times, and it's really very frightening if it catches you off guard, actually.
The last time it happened, it was just before I moved out of that house. I had actually did a preliminary investigation for an upcoming case. I got home that night, so I honestly can't say if something followed me or if this was something in the house. But I was laying in bed. I woke up and I was experiencing sleep paralysis. But this time I had a man's voice whispering in my right ear very urgently. I couldn't understand what he was saying. It was just like, you know,
Right, right.
but it was like urgent. And so I thought out to it. I said, I can't understand you. Slow down so I could try to understand you. Well, it seemed to get agitated and started doing it even more fast and loud in my ear. Still not understanding it. So I told it again, I can't understand you. Slow down. Speak clearly. Well, this time it felt like,
It's gonna.
hold on to that video because I want to talk about that one. This time I didn't see anything, but I felt like this something got right in my face and was screaming at the top of its lungs in my face.
Wow.
I didn't physically hear it or audibly hear it. I just felt it. And then at that point, I was saying, okay, that's it. You're done. You're out of here. And I put up a white light of protection and I imagined pushing it out the window and behind me. And after a few moments, it went away and I was able to get up and move again. But that was the last time that happened. I moved out about a month or so later, and I've never experienced sleep paralysis since.
Well, unfortunately, we've not been able to get that flying sock footage up, but he did come across this other footage that you've asked him to just hold on to because you wanted to discuss it. So you want to just prep us for what this video footage is?
Yes, this is Rolling Hills Asylum. This is our second visit, and the owner is giving us a preliminary tour before the investigation. And at this one point, while she's giving us the tour, you see what looks like an orb streak past her head. And then a moment later, this mist kind of comes by her. Okay, that's okay. Let me back up. He found the flying sock.
Oh, okay.
So go ahead and play this one. You need to start it from the beginning.
This is now the flying sock footage.
Yes. Okay. If you can make the screen bigger, go for it. There we go. See, the orb streaks by at that point, and then I pan over, and then you see the anomaly go flying past right there.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Now, is this video playing? There it goes. And I looped it so it played again. Is that video playing jerky for you?
It's going very slowly.
Yeah. So it might be kind of hard to see, but there it goes. Boom. Now here's a slow motion version of it. And there it goes. Boom.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So again, it looks like a tadpole almost.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
It almost looked like a ghostly pet of some sort.
You know, my one cat was lying right there. He didn't react to it.
Usually they pick up on that sort of thing too.
Yeah, they do. But no, it didn't really happen that time.
Now, Chris, the other footage that you had put up that he told you to hang on to, do you know which one that was? It kind of looked like you were inside. You could tell you were inside the asylum. And it looked like hospital type atmosphere, right?
Yes, very much. Now, have you ever been to Rolling Hills?
I've not been, no.
If you get a chance, definitely you should go.
Yeah.
You can get your group to go and get an all-nighter, because
Mm-hmm.
especially later in the night, things happen. If you have enough people to spread out, because it is a large facility.
Right.
But like I said, we captured many different anomalies, many different voices, seeing shadow people, seeing lights. An excellent location.
A bundle of energy, a whole bunch of different things going on.
Now here's something that you have to consider. They've had Rolling Hills running as a paranormal hotspot that they let groups come in and investigate, and they hold events and whatever. So you have to wonder how much of that is stuff that is there and how much of it is been brought there.
Mm,
And
true.
that's something I always ask of these big public locations, because so many people come in. You have people doing things they shouldn't be doing. If they're conjuring something, if they're
Yeah.
opening portals, whatever. And
Yeah,
some
because definitely
locations,
not any moderation to it. So they're going to just run rampant and do whatever they want.
yeah, and some locations start to have even more intense activity as time goes on. Well, it could be a combination. Is so many people coming in just stirring things up so much,
Right.
or are there some cases where they're actually bringing something in with them?
It looks like we're not having luck, are we? Oh, no, maybe he's come up now. Let's see. I'll recognize the picture when it pops up to say that it's, oh, that's it. I'm sure you will too. But you're right. It's very possible that people are bringing stuff in, and because they are doing, some people are doing stuff that they're not supposed to be doing, and you never know what you're inviting in by doing that sort of thing. So,
That's why I like investigating some locations that people haven't gone to as often. I mean, big
yeah,
locations, sure, they're fun. I love the big locations. Everything from Rolling Hills to the Red Mill down in Clinton, New Jersey, Fort Mifflin down in Philadelphia. Uh, any of those type of big public locations that have a lot of activity. I'm not going to lie, they're fun. But I also like going into the other locations, other places that aren't as well investigated, that have activity, and you can have a little bit more of a controlled environment.
right. And you might end up having more activity than you expected because it's not been traversed by so many bodies before.
Now, you and your team investigated the Sterling Hill mine over in Ogdensburg.
Yes, we did. We had the great opportunity to do that before they turned it into a paranormal event every Halloween. I was in there before that happened.
Okay.
I was writing that first book, and I happened to talk to the president of the mine and was getting his story, and he was telling me how he's a scientist and he's not supposed to believe in any of this stuff, and all of this stuff is happening, he can't explain it. Why don't I bring my paranormal team in and do an investigation? And I was like, great, I would love to do that. And I didn't have a paranormal team. So I had to put one together, and we stuck ever since. That's when it got started, and it stuck. And we got such great footage because it was such an active place that we got featured on Paranormal Caught on Camera with the footage that I sent into them.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I haven't been there myself. It's one of the places I need to get into.
You
But
know what? I could try and get back in there if you want, just to do a private investigation. They have my books in their gift shop, so I don't know. It can't hurt for me to try it. I'll let you know and see if we
sure,
can get us in there.
because
I don't know if we're having luck with that footage with the sock
that's
video, but
okay.
you did mention the Red Mill Museum, and I really want to discuss that in today's show because it was an abundance of activity. Picture credit to your North Jersey Paranormal Group's website because he's going to put that picture up. It's the last one I sent, Chris, because I pulled it up off your website. But it's located in Clinton, New Jersey. The mill has been around since the 1780s. and was expanded. No, that's not it. That's the
That's
wrong
the
one.
Rolling Hills.
It's the last one I sent you. It was expanded over the years to process grist, graphite, talc,
Mhm.
limestone,
Well,
and
first
other
of all,
materials.
anybody who hasn't been down there, first of all, Clinton is a beautiful old style town. Now, the mill, the red mill, and you can see the picture there, it's a side view of it, was built in the
Yes.
early 1800s. Actually, they think there was an earlier mill on the site in the 1700s. But this mill, as you mentioned, produced talc, graphite. It was a textile mill. And when you tour the mill, they kept it in the original condition. They still have all the wheels and pulleys. The water wheel still works. And
Well, it's a museum. It's a museum today, isn't it?
yes, it's a
Yeah,
museum.
okay.
You can take the tour of the museum. It's a self-guided tour. But the property it sits on is adjacent to this old rock quarry, which was a separate business, but they would mine or get the rock and the talc and everything from the quarry and process it in the mill. So the whole property can be investigated. It's all part of the museum, and there's activity all over the property. Now, in the mill itself, we've had disembodied voices that we've heard. We've caught. There's a fantastic photo on the Red Mill page that I sent you, where it was taken with a thankful God. My investigator took it with high resolution. She took it of her husband on the third floor. He was sitting on a box, and you could see behind him there was this darkened hallway. Throughout the night, everybody kept seeing what they thought was somebody peeking at them around the corner in that hallway. Well, we didn't have a video camera running, but she was taking pictures. And in this one picture, you look at it and there doesn't look like there's anything there. You zoom in, brighten it up, and there's a face staring right at you.
Oh, well, it's really funny that you should say it because you saw the picture that was just up on the screen. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That picture, the side, no, not that one. No, that's supposed to be the surprise picture. Not showing that one. You're supposed to show the mill. It's the actual side view of the mill. Patty Conover was there taking pictures. She's a friend of mine who does her own paranormal sleuthing. She took the picture of the red mill, that side view. And then when she went home, she decided to go and zoom in on the windows. And then that's when she got the apparition in the window, which is that picture you're going to show now, Chris. And she was stunned because you can clearly see that there's somebody there. And it's amazing how you can see these things in windows. I find stuff like that all the time when I take pictures on investigations, when I take pictures of the windows and stuff, and then I'll go and look at them later and I'll catch faces or full-bodied apparitions. And this is a really good photograph that she caught.
I'll tell you,
phenomenal.
it's on the third floor. The third floor of the mill is very, very active. And we have another picture that we did not take. They had a professional photographer coming out and taking publicity photos of the mill. Actually, I think he was more of an artist. He was just taking artistic pictures. But he got one of the mill, and when you look into the one window in the same area, there's a white figure standing in the window. And there's no mannequins. There's nobody was in there at the time. Nothing. Very, very clear picture of what looks like a woman. During our first investigation, we had cameras everywhere. We did capture a few anomalies. We had a lot of personal experiences. We were the first team to investigate the mill, the first private team, because the first team to actually investigate it was the TAPS team for the Ghost Hunters show. So they were in there the year before us, and then we were the first local team to come and investigate. And that was back when the mill was allowing that. Now they've changed management, and they don't want anything to do with it. So I don't know if anybody can investigate it anymore. But we did a few investigations there. But during one part of the first investigation, one of my investigators, Ed Martinez, was walking around with a thermal imaging camera, which was a hot commodity back then. You could not, if you had a FLIR, you were exceptionally lucky. And he had one because he was a mechanical engineer and he had got it from his job. So he is walking through the mill, just being shown around by the one docent who's on the board of directors, Bruce Pearson. And they were walking through the second floor, and they didn't see anything at the time. And then later we're examining the footage, and as they're walking through, and he pans by the doorway which leads into the stairwell, and then there's a door to go outside. There is a heat signature that's about 3 feet high that had a human form. Nobody was there. In fact, they would have walked right into that stairwell because they were going up to the third floor and there was nothing there. But yet in the video, you clearly see he actually pans over and you clearly see this short figure standing there. Now, we went back there and we tried to recreate it every way we could with the thermal camera, with regular cameras, looking for anything that would cause that kind of heat signature. There was nothing. One of the other things we got was there's an old schoolhouse, an 1850s schoolhouse on the property. Now, it's not original to the property. It was brought in and placed there as part of the museum, showing what an old one-room schoolhouse looked like. TAPS never investigated it. We were the first team to investigate it. And when we were in there, we had all sorts of activity from EVPs, but there was one segment where 3 of our female investigators were inside there, and they were asking if something was there, could they knock on one of the desks? And so somebody knocked on the desk. They waited a minute, and all of a sudden you hear a rap. There was a knock on the desk right in front of them.
And we actually have that footage that you had sent to us. Like in this picture here, I can definitely see at least one. I see a woman, but there's definitively something in the upper right and 2 in the upper left in this photograph. And I would just love to get your opinion of that, but that's what I see in her photograph. While Chris is getting that Schoolhouse Knocks video up for everybody to see. But
I'll be honest with you, it's a little abstract to me. I see something. I see what looks like some of the lines look like it could be a reflection of that other building that's nearby from that direction, but the rest of it, I can't tell what it is. It looks like there might be some figures there, but I have to be honest, it looks a little abstract to me.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. I see a Victorian woman in the center. I see the line that you're talking about. And then behind the line, I see her standing there. She's got a white shirt on. I could see her hairline, and her hands are kind of like held in front of her body, clasped together. That's somebody that I see really well. But I do see some figures in the upper right and the upper left. But
a woman in period clothing and even a child in period clothing have been seen and heard in the mill. We were on the 3rd floor, and we hear a little girl's voice say, "Hi." And we caught that on audio. That happened twice. That's cool. In the schoolhouse, we had not only the wrappings, which happened several times, full view of the camera, but one of the investigators got touched on her back, and she kind of freaked out a little bit. There was, here, I have an audio. There is one point where they were walking through the 3rd floor of the mill, and they captured a man's laughter. So listen, and of course these were 3 women, and there was no men in the mill at the time, and yet they captured this laugh. Listen to this.
Oh yeah, I could hear that really clearly.
Yeah, play it again.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely a very interesting EVP. And again, EVPs are one of my favorite forms of evidence because, cameras, still cameras, and even video cameras, some anomalies you could maybe discount because of dust or some kind of a light flare, a lens flare, or whatnot. But when you get an audio recording and there's nobody else there, or you get a very strange voice that should not be there, it really stands out.
Sure.
I'm going to play one other video. This is an EVP that we captured in a private home in Oakland, New Jersey. And I'm playing this one. This location didn't have overwhelming activity, but what we did catch was incredibly intriguing. This voice in particular, and what's going to stand out to you is the very, very low, deep pitch of this voice. And tell me if you can understand what it's saying.
Okay.
Now, there's a little bit of us talking in the background, but there's two times it speaks. It's two words separated by a space. Let me play it again. Now, are you hearing what I'm talking about?
I do, but I did hear the other voices, but I can't make out what it's saying.
Like here's the first part of the voice. Whoops. Let me play it. To us, it sounds like very, and then. So the whole thing together, and this is one of those voices that's taken out of context. We weren't asking questions at the time. It sounds like it's saying very soon. But again, the low, deep resonance of the voice is what intrigues me the most. It almost doesn't sound human. If it is, that they're having a very hard time speaking in our dimension.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to play that one because I thought it was interesting. Okay, so he has a video up here of the schoolhouse knocks.
The schoolhouse knocks. Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right, if there's somebody here, can you knock 3 times on the desk? Let's see how smart you are. What the?
That was totally on the desk. That was on the
Holy sh!
That was on the same
Let me get the
desk.
key too.
Yeah, you notice I had to kind of edit it a little bit.
That was funny.
Yeah,
they were definitely surprised by that. Now, anybody that's listening in today, they could go to your website and see all the footage of these investigations that we spoke of tonight and the things that we weren't able to show or listen to, right?
Yes, if you go to we're North Jersey Paranormal Research, so if you go to njpresearch.com for North Jersey Paranormal Research, all of our investigations going all the way back to 2004. I haven't posted anything in the last couple of years. Kind of took a break for a bit, but we have many different investigations from private homes to public locations to very strange. I mentioned the Sterling Hill mine because there's also I did a mine investigation in another state as well as a natural cavern.
Nice.
That one blew me away because we were in so deep. Nobody ever died in it. The Indians never went in it because they were afraid of it. And yet there was so much activity going on down there. And it's one of those locations that I'm convinced you're dealing with something that's not human.
And do you think it's like a portal of some sort?
No, not exactly. I think what we're dealing with something elemental, interdimensional that lives in that location. I mean, there are a lot of, there's stories all over the world of these elemental types of beings that have very paranormal type of activity around them. Everything from the Celtic fairy lore to Icelandic elves to Middle Eastern jinns. Even here in America, they talk about in mines. They talk about Tommy knockers, things that live underground. And people, there's this guy I follow on YouTube. He's a spelunker. He's not a paranormal guy. His YouTube channel is just exploring abandoned mines. And about 10 years ago, he went into this one mine. And as he's in the mine, he's way back in, and nobody's been in this mine for years and years and years. All of a sudden, he starts hearing voices like two people talking. And it gets really loud, like it's right next to him. And he got so freaked out, he had to get out of there. And again, like I said, not a paranormal person. He walked into another mine, instantly got a bad feeling. And as he's filming in the mine, way back in, you see these chains hanging down from the ceiling. All of a sudden, the chains start swinging wildly. And there's no breeze, no nothing. So he had to get out
Is he by himself?
Yeah, he's by himself at those times.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, so I
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that's kind of one of the things where I've been redirecting my focus lately is instead of a haunted house or building or whatnot, I'm more interested in these locations of high strangeness, of things that may not necessarily be the ghost of a person who died. Maybe there's other things going on there, whether you're dealing with interdimensional portals, time slips, other types of high strangeness activity. That's what I've been really interested in, where I'm focusing my research as I move forward.
Oh my goodness, it's so interesting though, for sure. Is there anything else you want to tell the listeners about that they should be looking out for? Obviously, this stuff that you're starting with, you'll start producing something that we'll be able to sink our teeth into. But for the time being, what else would you like to leave them with?
Just that, most people do have paranormal experiences, and we're trained at a very young age to ignore them unless you're a very sensitive person. And this is why I realize in hindsight I've been having paranormal experiences in one form or another most of my life, and I did blow them off. Or if something happened, I go to my mother and she goes, "Oh, it's just your imagination." That's what we tell
Happened to
our
me.
kids.
Me too. Yep, that's exactly what happened to me too. Yep.
And so you do blow it off. But then when you think about it in hindsight, especially if something happens and it stays with you for years and years later, and you can still remember it clearly, that's a good signal that something is really going on. Now, what it could be a number of things, because I don't just subscribe to ghosts and spirits. There's a lot of other things going on around us. Our world, what we think of as our reality, is just a small fragment of the totality of our reality that's around us. It's like looking at the light, physical light. We see the sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum about this big, when in reality it stretches way out to either end, from the infrared to the ultraviolet, radio waves, gamma rays, x-rays, all sorts of different frequencies, but we only see that sliver. And that's how our view of the reality is of our world. And there's so much more going on around us that we can't even see or perceive. And sometimes we do, and we can't explain it.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for sharing your night with me. I'm so glad you could come. It was a lot of fun.
Oh,
and
thanks,
we'll have to
Lauren.
do it again. I definitely want to discuss the other case that you said you have an abundance of information that would probably last the entire. So we'll have to do that again.
Yeah, that one would be a whole show in itself.
Then we'll have to do it for sure.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me on. I've had a really great time.
Thank you. And thank you, Techie Chris. We couldn't do it without you. If any of you are interested in reading any of my books, you can find the links to them on my website, authoreleanorwagner.com. I write about the history of the town and location. Add the paranormal story to the mix and finish it all off with photos and evidence. And if you're looking for some protection from ghostly attachments, the Lady Ghostbuster unisex bracelet is the perfect thing. This gorgeous protective gemstone bracelet with sterling silver ghost charm is the perfect fix. Offered in a collaboration with Zen Jewels by Zen Jen. You can find the link for this gorgeous piece at my website, authoreleanorwagner.com, under the gift shop tab. Don't go into a haunted building unprotected. Arm yourself with the Lady Ghostbuster bracelet by Zen Jewels. I hope you'll join us on Thursday, July 7th, when entertainer and paranormal investigator Mike Mesmer is here for some ghostly gab at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, good night.
I hope you've enjoyed this little journey down my own personal nightmare alley. If you're one of those people who experiences the paranormal and has stories of your own you've been filing away over the years, I want to hear about them. And if you're a part of a paranormal investigative team, even better. I'd love to have you on my show. Got a questionable photo? Send it in. Would love to have an open discussion here amongst the professionals. Reach out to me at authoreleanorwagner@gmail.com. Enjoy our soundtrack music, Headless Horseman by Alexander Nakarada, promoted by freestockmusic.com. And remember, no ghost story is better than a real-life ghost story. Until we meet again, make sure you're creeping it real.